The so-called House Liao, or Royal Guard, were a band of misfit mech warriors that danced across the line between mercenary unit and full-on criminal organization. Long after the fact, their only notable contribution to the history of the Capellan Confederation is as criminals and grifters. They operated in House Liao-controlled space between 3023 and 3028. For 5 years, they traveled from planet to planet, claiming to be representatives of the Capellan military and government security forces. On the planet of Pojos, the HLRG arrived with a lance of freshly painted battle mechs in colors that were intended to portray themselves as important forward troops for incoming dignitaries. They enjoyed lavish accommodations, accepted resupply, and proceeded to camp in the mansion of the planet's governor for nearly a month before they wore out their welcome and left the planet having stolen most of the valuables from the building. Just a few weeks later, an actual Capellan representative from Sean arrived and the ruse was discovered. Later on Gunthar, the LHRG smooth-talked the planetary defense forces into allowing a landing at a major spaceport. Unloading their lance of mechs, they held an impromptu military parade into the city, stopping at a series of banks where vaults were emptied. After the third stop, local officials realized that this was actually a raid and called out the local militia. The lance of mechs returned to their dropships under fire. From correspondence and recorded audio traffic, it appears that the House Liao Royal Guard fashioned themselves as quasi-Robin Hood characters, though they always forgot the give-to-the-poor part of that colloquialism. In fact, most of the planets and cities the LHRG visited ended up being punished pretty hard by Capellan authorities for their lax security, and local economies often suffered after banks were cleared out and collapsed. On Zanzibar, the LHRG arrived running their usual scam, pretending to be Capellan authorities. Unfortunately for their plan, there was already a small contingent of Capellan bureaucrats on the planet with a significant military contingent. By that point, the LHRG had swelled to 7 functional battle mechs, with 3 surrounding the government house that they had occupied and were using to quietly loot the area. Capellans were sick of this bandit group pretending to be noble house members, and their wrath was considerable. Dozens of artillery rounds and 4 flights of LRMs were coordinated to hit the building at the same moment. The structure was obliterated, along with the mechs and most of the surrounding buildings as well. The resulting fireball and rising smoke alerted the LHRG mechs still at the spaceport to quickly leave. Only due to a communication error, the dropship successfully escaped the planet and headed to the bandit jumpship. The remaining LHRG went off the grid for months, waiting for the heat from the Capellan security forces to die down. There were several incidences of in-system hijackings that may or may not have been their doing, but the distinct metallic green and gold mechs were not spotted until late 3028, when the dropship claiming to belong to Capellan Royal Guard landed on the planet Sheba and set up shop at a spaceport, claiming that they were preparing for a much larger security force's arrival in a few weeks. Much like before, it was a pretext to enjoy all the perks of being official Capellan representatives. After loading most of the starport's valuables, fuel, and equipment into the dropship, the 4 remaining LHRG mechs were on the move and were in the process of demanding a shipment of alcohol and food be delivered when a suspicious local official decided to check the HPG bans for suspicious behavior from bandits. An old report from Zanzibar came up and spoiled the plans for the LHRG, who had to once again quickly load up into their dropship and flee the planet under fire from planetary defense forces. By the time the dropship reached their jumpship at the zenith point, the HPG network was alive with chatter, and it seemed that the grift was over. Every planet in the region now had notice concerning the House Liao Royal Guard. Either smart enough to move on, or having been quietly eliminated by Capellan forces, the LHRG was never seen operating again. Some rumors say that the Mechwarrior scammers moved on to new grifts after parting ways. Others say the organization headed out into the periphery space to find a new scam. Still others claim they made so much money that the group retired and set up a small pirate kingdom somewhere in uncharted space. The only evidence that has been discovered in the years since the last sighting was an old Centurion going up for auction in Capellan space in 3031. The fresh coat of black paint and an unclear title made the auctioneers nervous. They called in security, and even though it wasn't conclusive, the remnants of gold and steel paint, along with acid-wiped serial numbers on the mech's parts, suggested that it might have been part of the LHRG's unit. The seller bought it from someone who bought it from someone who said they found it in an abandoned hangar in an industrial area. Ultimately, the legacy of the House Liao Royal Guard is one of continuing challenges concerning humanity's ability to communicate quickly across the galaxy. The HPG network has been a saving grace, but it's still inadequate, as the sheer volume of information necessary to make connections and stop patterns of criminal behavior just isn't available. Perhaps someday, scientists can bridge the gap and create an inner sphere that is safer, stronger, and able to toss bandit organizations like the House Liao Royal Guard into the dustbin of history. So Nim, Capellan Historian 3042. As always, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this metallic scheme and if you thought the story was fun. If you want to see more, check out this video on the tragic tale of the 51st Guard. Take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.